On today's show, it is a very special edition of Mailbag Monday where we respond to some of your questions and comments concerning the Padres' future, concerning Michael King, concerning AJ Preller and Mike Schultz's job security, who didn't show up in the series, the Dodger fans hating in the comments, all of that and much more. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for Monday, October 6th. As always, I'm your host with sometimes the most, Javier Reyes, and I've been covering this team for, I'm pretty sure, 7 years now, or at least, no, well, 6 years. That's how long it's been. For not just this podcast, but also various other outlets, including justbaseball.com, chief among them. Today's episode, guys, is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app today. Today's episode, guys, we are responding to some of your comments. It's our first 2025 Padres post-mortem. Right? This is the epilogue of the season, which has been, it was tough. We got a lot of comments. Most of them, not most of them actually, but a lot of them that got a lot of traction. A lot of Dodger fans because, again, remember, guys, you must always remember, they care so little about the Padres. They just keep interacting with our stuff, right? So we're going to respond to some of those comments and stuff. But, I want to also start off the show by just saying, my general thoughts on the season having now ended. Nothing to do with the playoffs that have happened this weekend. We're seeing the Yankees get killed. We saw the Phillies just lose to the Dodgers. That's unfortunate. We're seeing the Brewers. They just killed the Cubs in game 1, which, by the way, I actually might be one of those people that's like, look, here's how I'll say it. I think the weekend and the reason why I wasn't as visibly annoyed with this team the way I was last year, I think in a lot of ways, where it really was a lot more painful. The loss last year, not just because it was the Dodgers, that's a big part of it, but also because I really truly did believe that team was the one, right? I think the reason this one didn't hurt as much, and the reason why I kind of forgot about it as the weekend transpired is, number one, football, and my fantasy team killed it. But number two, and also I hung out with some friends, but number two is that I just didn't have super high expectations for this team to begin with. I thought that they could make it to the next round, and then maybe they beat the Brewers, but still, Brewers, I don't believe that they're going to win the World Series or anything because of the low payroll and the historical precedent when you have such a low payroll. But rather, I just didn't think that this Padres team had it. I never trusted the offense, and that's why I had picked the Cubs originally in the first series. So I'm not as broken up about this series as I think some others have been. And as I talked about on Friday's show, which everybody could go check out with my Karthik Venkatraman of CBS 8 Sports. Those two, by the way, Karthik and Jake, will make more appearances on the show, as well as Big Jim of the Postcast. Don't worry, you haven't seen the last of them yet, even though it's now me for a little bit in the slave minds of the Padres until we hear some news, I think. That I think my takeaway has just been, again, I just didn't expect them to go far. I don't think that they had it this year. And this goes back to a little bit why I was a little bit critical of the Padres trade deadline. Now, don't get me wrong. AJ did his job, AJ Preller, who we're going to talk about more as we answer some of your guys' comments, because there was a lot. We got a lot to go through. And some of them are just funny troll comments too, but I figured it'd be funny to just respond to them. I think that the deadline worried me because I just really think that Leo DeVries is a top-tier asset. Now, we're going to see how that all pans out. But one of the things that I talked about on Friday was that I think that we've got two categories of topics to get into, right? The first is just what are the biggest questions? And the second is what's going to happen to some of the other players on this team, right? The way that you can take a silver lining. I think, right? So, and the silver lining is that I think that the Padres rotation, if they're able to bring back Michael King next year, could be actually pretty good. I really do believe that. And not to mention AJ Preller and company's ability to manifest prospects out of nowhere. I do think they could be good, but I do maintain my belief that it's all weekend. That's what I was thinking about. Like, dude, you had it. Your moment when they lost last year in the playoffs, you were like, that was it. That was the best chance they're going to have. It really felt like that. And it felt like the trade for Mason Miller, while not necessarily bad, because he might be converted especially to a starter next year, which will be huge, but rather I just thought it didn't feel like a team that you should go as all in. And it feels like a team that could really use some fresh blood right about now, right? If this is a team that instead of trading for Juan Soto, you're rocking CJ Abrams on a club-friendly contract, hopefully, right? He's still under club control, and you're rocking James Wood in left field, who's under club control. I just wonder if you're feeling a little bit better about that. I'm wondering if what we're going to be talking about for a lot of this offseason is just not that AJ Preller should be fired, but maybe Padres fans and everybody should remember, hey, we had a really good season last year, and it was a lot of minor moves that were made. Don't get me wrong, the Luis Arraez trade and especially the Dylan Cease trade were big, and trading Juan Soto to get back some pieces, but AJ did really well at just building out a more complete team, I think is what you saw happen last year. So I'm just wondering, like, maybe we need to really start once again, and I've been saying this for a few years now. I am on the record saying I didn't think that they needed to do the Juan Soto trade. Although I was ecstatic when it happened, of course. I just think you need to readjust your philosophy when following this team. I think that this idea that they should always be going for the top player on the market is a little bit fraught. And I think, yes, don't get me wrong, our top players have not shown up in big stops and big spots, right? Tatis was awesome last year and his previous playoffs. Don't get me wrong, so he's a little bit excused. But didn't happen this year, right? Manny Machado didn't happen this year, didn't happen last year, didn't happen the year before that. Like, my view is this. You're supposed to spend money to get your crop of stars. And then the rest of it is a little bit minor contracts and a lot of prospects. That's what I think you're supposed to do. The Padres have the top stars. So what they should be doing is trying to get those little middle tier free agents and building up a lot of prospects, in my opinion, right? So they have part of that, which is why this offseason you're going to hear some people saying, well, we need to go after Pete Alonso. And my response to that is, I actually don't think they need to do that. I actually think that maybe, if some money clears off the books, if they get fortunate in some ways, just kind of get some decent players and go from there. Don't handcuff yourself when you don't need to unnecessarily. Don't tie every life raft to this ship that is the engine's all messy, right? Like, I know that they're close to the island. This is a horrible analogy, but stick with me. I'm going to land it. I know that you're really close to landing, but it's a bad engine. Maybe you should wait for that other ship that's 2 miles backwards and say, you know what? Let's actually hitch our life rafts to that one. Let's spread out the wealth a little bit more. But again, that's just my main diagnosis of the season. There's so much to talk about. And there's so many comments that I got that we're going to get into in the next segment and the segment after that I probably won't finish them all today. But don't worry. It's going to be fun. And I'm going to talk to you guys more about what to expect from this show throughout the course of the offseason, because believe me, lots of content. And when it's the Padres, you know dang well that AJ Preller and just something is going to happen, right? Things tend to happen with the Padres. It's never a boring team. That much you could say about them, even when it goes bad. But first, folks, let me talk to you about one of our longtime sponsors, and that is our good friends over at FanDuel. Here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. With the NFL season here, FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down 5 buckaroos, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300. 300, not 3.00, $3. $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Whether you're a casual, whether you're hardcore, you want to build parlays, you want to do player props, you want to do spreads, whatever you want, FanDuel has you covered. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. FanDuel, go check it out. And just like that, everybody, we are back thriving and vibing despite it all. Maybe I might have to change the that little tagline, the thriving and vibing, by the way. Leave comments below for what I should change it to. This is inspired by Clyde Frazier, who does coverage for the New York Knicks. If anybody doesn't know, he loves rhyming, like driving and finding, he says, roasting and toasting, he says, stuff like that. A little two-word rhyme, if you guys can think of one. But we're going to get into your questions in a second. The last thing I want to bring up, I think, for the Padres is just with this show. All right, we're going to be doing player reviews. I'm going to go through every major player for the Padres this year, talk about their season, whether or not it was good, give it a letter grade, all that stuff. Some of them I think will be really fascinating to discuss, like Tatis and Jackson Merrill. Some of them are a little bit more cut and dry, like Manny Machado, like Jay Cronenworth to a degree. And Nick Pivetta is going to be a lot of fun to get into. We're going to have free agents, early free agent wish list. Right? Going to talk about that. I love giving my free agent desires every offseason, right? We're also going to talk about the biggest questions. Tomorrow's episode probably going to be talking about Mike Schilt and AJ Preller and whether or not they should stay. because I genuinely think we're on like year 7 of the debate about AJ Preller, by the way, which is insane. But let's get into some of your questions, guys. The first thing I want to mention, though, is give a shout out to a listener of the show. And that is someone by the name of Andrew, my man, Big Jim of the Postcast, said that he was hanging out in some hotel place or whatever, and he's told me that he ran into you. And he says, hey, yeah, I do. And he's like, yeah, I like the show and whatnot. So shout out to you, man. He said that you were a fan of mine. Shout out to you, Andrew, if you're listening. Love you so much, man. Feel free to leave a comment as well. Thank you for listening to the show. That's crazy that you ran into Jim. I'm glad you enjoy what you're seeing. And don't worry, I'll be your Padres therapist, I guess, for the rest of the summer. But moving on now to some actual questions and comments that we got. I got a lot along the lines of this, right? With substituting a couple players. But at Lil Casino Music says, get rid of Manny Tatis Cronenworth. Is that an actual possibility? I'm tired of watching this crap. So here's the thing. I think that this speaks to a couple things. Number one, Jake Cronenworth, I think it's important to remember that he's one of the lower tier players on the team anyway. Not that he can't show up big, but remember he's had some big hits for this team. He was one of the team's best players this year in high leverage situations. It's true. You could go look at Fangraphs. And also he's had some big hits before this, right? Remember the big double against the Dodgers in 2022? Like, he's had okay playoff moments, right? Okay playoff moments. And considering he's not like a star, I just don't think he's the one to talk about getting rid of right now. Then there's Manny Machado, who I totally understand. Manny Machado, it feels like it's time to start discussing that maybe we love him, but it's also fair to say maybe if you could choose a superstar out of all the superstars we've had in the game, maybe Manny Machado isn't the one, right? Only gets one hit this postseason, right? It was a big hit. Don't get me wrong. It was the 3-run home run, or it was the 2-run home run. But other than that, 682 OPS in his lifetime in the playoffs. He had one stretch. It was in the 2022 season. In my opinion, he should have won MVP that year, by the way. He had a 910 OPS. Like, he was pretty good. But overall, what you've seen is just not a lot for Manny Machado, so I get that. There's a sense, I think, among Padres fans that are like, did we attach ourselves to the wrong stars? As I was talking about in the first segment, you got to spend to get your big stars, like your anchors at the top of your team. And then you filter out through the rest of the way. I get it. And lastly, Fernando Tatis Jr., who I received a lot of comments about. And I'm not hating on you, mister, the person who sent that comment, right? I've got some people who are bringing up, at Geo Truong 8067 says, Tatis, Arise, Machado 0 for 12. These three never win big games. I get it. The thing that I will say is that Fernando Tatis Jr. is still a very good overall player. I discussed this on Friday's show that he is a potential like fringe Hall of Famer if this is just who he is for the rest of his career. Because remember, this year, he was still 10th in wins above replacement, guys. Among all players, 6.1. In fact, the only players that had more wins above replacement than him are some names that you might recognize. Francisco Lindor, Jose Ramirez, Corbin Carroll, Trey Turner, Geraldo Perdomo, which was a random one this year, Shohei Ohtani, Bobby Witt Jr., Cal Raleigh, and Aaron Judge. Right, so that's an elite tier of players. Now, what is true is that his hitting has left a lot to be desired, which is why the player review, when we talk about that, is going to be really fascinating. To the point where, like, it's not going to be the first one I do because I actually don't fully know how to feel about Tatis going forward. But I will say this, he's still very much a star-level player because of the walks, because of the speed, and because of the defense. These things matter. They absolutely do matter. And even still, in a down year batting, it's at least worth saying, hey, he still had 25 home runs. He scored 111 runs. He swiped 32 bases, right? That's still pretty good. 131 WRC plus. That's still good, and that's a star level player. The difference is, and I think where this is where a lot of the frustration is showing up, is it's not superstar level, and it feels like Tatis, before the PED suspension, admittedly, it looked like he might be Griffey. You know what I mean? That's what it looked like he might be. And instead, this is his second most wins above replacement total. He's more of an all-around player these days, and maybe this is just who he is. And if that's the case, this is still a good player, a great player, guys, whose contract is totally worth it. Like, really. Like, if he's just a 5-6 win player every year, that's still really good. So, again, that's my thing. But we weren't done there. We got some more comments. At akidIm13 says, when I saw they were starting Darvish, I knew we were screwed. Dude always chokes in the postseason. So, is this true about Yu Darvish? Not entirely, but it doesn't come without merit, right? He has one of the most infamous blow-ups ever in the postseason, right? He finished, what was it, the 2017 postseason with an ERA of 6.14, and he was really bad with Texas as well, a 9 ERA in the one game that he did start. He was really, really bad. But the Dodgers game, I mean, blowing up for them in the World Series was really tough. But as a Padre, his ERA by year, he's had 2 playoff appearances. I'm sorry, he's had 6 starts in the postseason, guys, before this year. And his ERA was incredible, right? Like, this was a guy who absolutely showed up for the Padres before this season, so I understand why there was some confidence that he could be great. 2.56 ERA across 6 starts as a Padres prior to this recent season. So I don't know if calling him a playoff choker is great. And also, he was really good against the Dodgers. That is a team that he historically just owns. So playoff choker, I don't agree with that. What I do agree with, though, is that having him start that game was really rough. And more importantly, I think the bigger issue is that he's just old. He's old. You know what I mean? I think that that's actually the biggest issue with Yu Darvish. At 38 years old, you're kind of hoping for miracles at this point, right? He ain't Clayton Kershaw. He ain't, Bob Gibson. He ain't, Cy Young, whoever, right? Like, he's not one of those type of guys. And I think that's what happens. So playoff choker, he's had some bad moments, but as a Padre, I understand why they were potentially leaving him out there. But one of the big questions, which I posed on Friday's episode, what happened with Michael King? I still don't really have an answer for this. Only going 1 inning. He wasn't available to start. There must have been something going on there. I don't know fully what it was. That's the big question. Because I just don't understand why he wasn't ready, or why he wasn't available, I should say, to go longer. Because that 1 inning that he went did look amazing. So again, that's just my vibe on it. But I understand why people are saying that. And speaking of Michael King, at Robin Rob, 9471 says, seems like King was saying farewell in the locker room. If the Padres aspire anything, they may have to sign him, right? That's what a lot of people are thinking. That's what I may even be thinking. Now, here's what Michael King did say in the locker room, just to get the full quote, right? In quotes, I'll let it digest for a little bit, King said. Then I'm sure it's a conversation I'll have with my family and my agent. I don't even know. These guys have all been incredible the last couple of years. AJ, general manager. Preller knows how to put together a team. We had everybody going for one goal, all pulling for each other. It was really fun to be part of these. It was really fun to be a part of these last 2 years. So I get what you're saying, my bad. Is Michael King alluding to maybe he will be leaving? I don't know, but here's what I will say. I do not know what Michael King's market is because of how he played this year. Not that he was atrocious, but just because he missed so much time, right? And for a guy who only converted to being a full, big-time starter, right? For basically last year with the Padres, there's a lot of questions around if you come after that first season, right? In 2024, he was excellent, don't get me wrong. But after that, if you show up the very next season and you only throw 73 innings, is the big deal out there? I don't personally think so. But there could be a moderate deal out there, and maybe King just wants to cash in. Maybe he wants to do a Blake Snell type of thing, where you get a year, an opt-out after each year. It is one of the biggest questions for the Padres going forward, and maybe him not playing this year might end up being a nice little break that they got, in the sense that now it might be easier to retain him, given what his likely salary will be. I think he's a $150 million plus pitcher. But the fact that he didn't pitch much this year, and if I'm a team, I'm wondering, why weren't you ready in the postseason? You pitched it at the end of the regular season. You were a starter there. Why is it that the team was more confident with starting the 38-year-old who had an ERA above 5, right, over you in a winner-take-all game? If I'm a team, I'm wondering that. So again, maybe it helps the Padres, but that is something that is going to be, in my opinion, one of the 2 biggest questions. It's the Michael King health / can they retain him / why was he unavailable? And then AJ Preller and Mike Schilt, I think, are the 2 biggest questions for the Padres. But there's a lot more questions in the comments that we got to get to, guys, and I've been taking way too much time talking about the ones so far, frankly. Although I love all of you that sent your comments. I really do. You're the best. Thank you so much. But first, a break from our sponsors. And folks, the break. We got to talk about our friends and homies over at Monarch Money. We love Monarch Money. Do you know why? Not because of that, let me tell you. But with Monarch Money, terrible coughing moment there, most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. I mean, you don't have the full picture. You can end up leaving money on the table. And that's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. It's built for people with busy lives. Not easy, but busy lives, right? If you've been putting off all of your finances like myself, Monarch is the type of app for you. You don't have to use a spreadsheet, man. You're going to just fully feel control of all your money. You're going to have all these data visuals. You can link all the accounts very, very quickly. It doesn't take very long. It's easy to help manage with your partner or financial advisor. It's great. They have everything, right? They have everything. Do not worry about the spreadsheets, guys, because Monarch Money is here for you. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. Remember, that's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONMLB. Don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks with Monarch Money. Go check it out. And just like that, everybody, we are back here on the Locked On Padres podcast, thriving and vibing despite it all. No time to waste. Let's continue responding to some of the comments that I saw from the channel. At Harold Felter commented, "Ha ha! Padres are still the, in all caps, Lord of No Rings." After all that trash talk too. Just hilarious. Just hilarious, some of the jokes you Dodger fans come up with. That one, I think I liked it because of how stupidly dumb it was. The Lord of No Rings. Like, you really thought you hit with that one. You know what I mean? You thought you cooked. You know what I mean? But I will say, I don't understand where this idea that the Padres fans are like the main trash talkers come from. And I don't understand this idea that like the Padres, like, they just so desperately want to beat the Dodgers. Like, yeah, that's how sports work. You want to beat the best team. I've never understood that line of thinking whatsoever. But what can you expect from people on the internet? What can I say, folks? Moving on, though. I want to save this question. I have this one locked and loaded for later. Tatis and Machado are nothing, and it's without the syringe emoji referring to PEDs. I'm gonna say what I've been saying about Tatis for a while with the PEDs. You can go through baseball history and find plenty of players that looked absolutely stupidly great at the beginning of their career and then faded away after that and just became pretty good players. Right? There's actually plenty of them. Right? Carlos Correa. Carlos Correa was, I don't know. He's weird. But George Springer, just to name a few. Evan Longoria, to name another one. He started falling apart. Not falling apart, but becoming a very normal player, like good, decent player at like age 27, 28. It's not always PEDs. And again, with Manny, it's like, what are you talking about? The guy's been in the league for like 16 years. There's no PEDs with him. At New Theus, I don't know. I think, or New Thias? I don't know how you say this, but the Reds stink, but both these teams aren't much better. Neither can win on the road. They can't beat good teams. All they can do is beat up on teams below 500. The Brewers would have beaten the Padres just as they will beat the Cubs in the next round. Yeah, I mean, hey, guys, again, I maintain my belief. This one didn't hurt me as much. It only, I think the reason it might hurt is only because of the feeling of how do we fix this? It hurts for three reasons. How do we fix this, especially with a potentially depleted farm? And the fact that you went for it, right? Like you went for it with the Mason Miller trade. You gave up a lot and they didn't show up. And the third reason I think why a lot of people are upset, it's the second year in a row that you've lost and gone out disappointingly in the playoffs, specifically because your superstars and your big name brand players didn't do anything in the playoffs. This year it was Arraez, Machado, and Tatis. Last year it was Machado, Profar, Arraez, Cronenworth. It was everybody last year, frankly, right? It was basically everybody. Tatis was the only one that showed up offensively for the Padres for the most part. The others had a couple hits, but you guys get my point, right? So I understand the frustration, but again, I wasn't expecting much, right? I really wasn't. Really kind comments from a lot of Cubs fans. At Brad Skilaba, I don't know how to say it, but Cub fan here. This is a tough team, and we won by the slimmest of margins. Our infield defense saved this series. Council ran out of arms in the ninth, very close to blowing it. Your bullpen is something else. Thank you so much, man. Yeah, I agree. And here's a couple things. One more from Chasing Dreams _ Good series, fellas. That bullpen you guys got lights out, especially Miller. Wow. Surprise Darvish started for you guys though. Again, that's what I'm talking about when it comes to we need to find out what's going on with Michael King. And there was someone who made a comment that I think is important. At Super Reviews for You said, I wouldn't say the Cubs got lucky. Sure, there were great plays by the Cubs, but I would say hitting the ball soft and expecting hits is trying to get lucky as well. Well, here's the thing. We talked about on the show that the Padres actually did hit the ball pretty hard in a lot of cases. And they had a lot of Baseball Savant has a number, expected batting average, that just is a nice gauge to give you an idea of how amazing a defensive play was. Like if it says 700 expecting batting average and it was an out, usually that means like you got like I should say the hitter got unlucky that the other team made a great play. Does that make sense? That's kind of how I view it. So I'm not saying the Cubs got lucky. I'm saying the Padres got unlucky. And I do think that there's a difference. And I'm only saying that in the sense that Ryan O'Hearn probably was robbed of like 4 hits this series by Dansby Swanson. And there was a couple more. Nico Horner made a great play. There was some plays that were like low dribblers. Again, Cubs defense was great. I'm not taking away anything from them. Just a little bit unlucky by the Padres. And yes, I do agree. When it comes to the slow rollers, that's not necessarily being unlucky, right? That's just a good defense, and maybe you should get better ball on bat to the ball. What else we got here? At Rusty Tops, it said, I'm a Cubs fan. The part of the series I didn't understand was the amount of use that he used of Mason Miller in that game. To me, it felt like the Padres were in complete control of game 2. I would have saved some of Miller's bullets. I would have put him in relief. Darvish, let him pitch as long as he could. A pitcher like that will zap the confidence right out of a lineup and would have pumped up the Padres hitters, just like the Padres manager blew his wad in game 2. Look, I sort of get that, but again, I don't know why Michael King wasn't available for longer than an inning. It still has not been answered just yet. So that's my thing of why he was like, I got to manage as if this is the last game. You do not want to be Buck Showalter, who didn't go to Zach Britton and his like 0.3 ERA on the year in a wild card game. You don't want to be that manager that didn't use Mason Miller as much as he could have. So that's what I think is the response to that. And I know I've been going all over the place, guys, with the questions and comments, but still, you know, what do you want from me? I'm not perfect. And I'm sorry about the late upload, by the way. At Inquisition96722, at least Darvish didn't implode on y'all during Game 7 of the World Series. That one was gut-wrenching to witness. Yeah, I get it. Dodger fans, I think most of them on the internet are like really mean about this, and they like actively hate and root against Yu Darvish. That's just what I've seen. I think that that's just dumb internet Dodger fans. But it always takes me off guard because I'm like, y'all have choked plenty of playoff series before the Darvish one. You know that, right? Like, you know that, right? This was a thing. Like, it's why they spent like $1.8 billion, because they were like, we keep choking every year. We need to get some stars that hopefully won't do that. Yamamoto, Teoscar, Glasnow, Snell, all those guys. That stuff matters. But I totally get you. It wasn't as much of a disaster as that. And the bigger disaster is the offense. So I'm not at all blaming Yu Darvish. And again, still need to find out what's going on with Michael King. At Brian Beltran says, thank you for covering this team for another fun season, Javi. Tough loss, but we will be back with a solid core next season. Thank you, sir. And thank you, Andrew, who I mentioned at the top of the show, the mailbag segment as well. Just, it's tough, man. It's tough. It really is. It really is. Like, I just wish that they could have maybe made it past the wild card round, but overall, gonna keep covering the team, at least for now, because there's still a lot to get into. And I really do think that it's important to remember that, like, as we close this out, as we close out this episode, it's important to remember that the Padres are in a position that there are so many other teams in Major League Baseball that would dream of, right? Reds fans are like, I dream of this. The A's fans, the Guardians fans, even the Guardians fans. I know that the Guardians like have made it to a World Series, right? And in my lifetime, and the Padres haven't. Not in my lifetime, but as of recent, right? But those are teams where we know with our ownership, we never really have a chance to really go for it and be exciting and win a championship because our ownership doesn't spend despite all the other good pieces, right? At least they're not the Rockies. At least they're not these teams. It's so rare in sports to be what the Padres were in 2015, a team that would not pay for Chase Headley, like 3 years, $50 million or whatever it was, and be a team now that's shelling out 11-year deals to Xander Bogaerts, which might not be a good deal, I know, but at least that is such a big hurdle to overcome. Look at the poor Angels fans. They thought their owner was leaving, and then he didn't, right? And now they're screwed, right? They're bad again, and they wasted Mike Trout's entire career. Of a first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the best players to ever play the sport, completely wasted his career. Like, I think that that's an important thing to remember as Padres fans, is at least there's like constant movement, there's like interest, there's excitement, there's things to look forward to, there's a sense that this team has evolved into a different version of themselves, and that's such a rare thing to happen in sports. It feels like if you're a bad organization, unless an ownership change happens, it usually stays that way, like for the foreseeable future, especially in baseball. So got to hang on to that and be positive, right? And as we've talked about on today's show, there are still some silver linings for this team going forward, and a lot of questions, and who knows, they might surprise us. The Nick Pivetta signing was a surprise. the Padres, it wasn't exactly known if they were going to be able to spend a lot of free agent money, right, with the payroll reduction and all that stuff. That's another big question for this offseason. But AJ found a way, right? AJ found a way. At Dan R154 says, GG Padres, I still like your team. Unfortunately, they're in the way of our rightful blood feud with the Brewers, and then the Cubs got killed in game 1, so that's just really funny. Look, there's so much. There's so much that we could go over from this series. Like, genuinely. At 9-inch Nels, which is hilarious, by the way. Javi, I'm watching game 1 right now. I could see Pivetta shaking his head. Knew he wasn't in a good space. He literally said out loud, oh no, or I literally said out loud, oh no, he needs a mound visit. Next pitch, Suzuki takes him deep. Next batter, boom, home run. Then Ruben comes out. 2 batters too late. Next batter. I can see this from my couch. How in the world didn't Ruben and Schultz see it? A lot of complaining about the managers. I get it. We've gotten a lot of it, and I understand your frustration there. My explanation, by the way, for the Pivetta one would be, you got to keep your guy in. This has been our guy all year, right? Like, you got to, in my opinion. But bottom line is this. They didn't play well. You had some really unclutch performances from Yu Darvish, right? And the offense. And this is just, I just don't think this team had it. I really don't. And I think that's why I come to you on Monday, not super upset, right? But again, there's so many questions. And if they go out and sign Yandy Diaz to play first base for a decent contract, will we be upset? No. Can they afford Yandy Diaz? Maybe. I know they have a better chance probably at getting him than Pete Alonso. But this is still a team that AJ Preller has done a lot of crazy things before. So do not be surprised if they're able to pull some stuff off. And at the very minimum, it's still a team that can at least be good, right? And sometimes that's all you can hope for. But for all of you guys that are complaining, all of you listeners, I leave you with this, because we'll get into the comments and questions again tomorrow, where we also talk about the big question of AJ Preller and Mike Schilt. That'll be tomorrow's episode. I leave you with this. A lot of y'all that love the big moves, love the big trades and all that stuff. You love it when they go for Mason Miller, guys like that. It comes off a little bit like, this is the price you pay when you do that, right? When you're making all these big moves, sometimes it's about going for the under the radar guys. The best version of the Padres was last year. And what were some of the biggest moves they made? Donovan Solano, Jurickson Profar, getting some relief help, right? And then Kyle Higashioka being a really solid catcher. It was stuff like that I think is really, really important to keep focused on, right? You don't need to do the biggest moves. You just don't. And they've been doing them for a while, and it's made them contenders. 4 out of 6 years they made the playoffs. But they don't always show up. And to me, I would like it if they had a little bit more depth to prepare for the future. But again, I think that AJ knows this. He's a lot smarter than me. So he's probably tinkering as we speak and had a plan for if this didn't go well. And he's like, don't worry, I can go out. There's a great Athletic article that talked about this. He genuinely believes in himself and that he's just going to find more prospects. I'm just saying, will it shock you if by the end of next year the Padres farm system all of a sudden is improving again? It won't shock me. Folks, this has been another episode of the Locked On Padres podcast, the only pod that may be better than the Padres themselves. It was a little bit all over the place. I apologize for that. It's the post-mortem. We're all coping. What can I say? We're all coping. Tomorrow's episode, I want to talk about the first big question of the offseason, which is Mike Schilt and AJ Preller. Should they be retained? Right? We're going to talk about that, talk about kind of both sides of the spectrum on that. Please leave me your comments that you on how you feel about the matter. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if not, still got more comments to go through tomorrow. It's going to be a lot of fun. So until that next time, everybody, you've been watching the Locked On Padres podcast. Stay safe and stay faithful, my Fire Faithful homies. Take care.